And the first question would be, what TV station are you airing on? And I'd be like, no, we're not on TV, we're on YouTube. And they're like, oh, we thought you were on TV. And I'm like, no, but this is better. This means that we can actually target people, we can be as niche as you want, you can actually see all of the statistics, understand the reach, all of that. Netflix have that partnership with WWE at the moment. And so, the number of times I've just been like, flicking through Netflix and then I suddenly see this wrestling live thing pop up, and the notifications pop up. To me, that is incredibly exciting. It's incredibly exciting that we can work with an individual who literally a year and a half ago was sitting at home with this dream, and you can now take the control and you can show people that there is an audience and there's traction. I think it's both fascinating and scary at the same time, because I'm seeing the output of some of these tools and they're really good. And it just makes you wonder, like, how long, will we continue to produce content the way we currently are? And things are shifting like on a weekly, monthly basis at this point. One thing that excites me the most is this feeling of everything being possible for anyone. I'd come from a broadcast background and I had launched this platform called Dubai On Demand, all on YouTube, wanting to work with a host of niche personalities to develop their content. And we did great on the PR and the traditional kind of ways of getting people's attention. Every brand wanted to meet us and we'd go and we'd sit. And the first question would be, what TV station are you airing on? And I'd be like, no, we're not on TV, we're on YouTube. And they're like, oh, we thought you were on TV. And I'm like, no, but this is better. This means that we can actually target people, we can be as niche as you want, you can actually see all of the statistics, understand the reach, all of that. And the majority of brands, after discovering that, were like, oh, we're so sorry. We were really interested, but we were expecting this to be on a broadcast station. And I spent 2 years, from 2014 till 2016, having the same conversation with brand after brand after brand, till it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I need to pause and focus back on the traditional medium because we just weren't succeeding. So I'm proud to say we've come full circle, and now that ecosystem is growing, but we're 10 years late. That was a time I was trying to do this 10 years ago.
Right. Now, if now anyone asks you, what are you producing for, they'll ask you if it's for YouTube first.
Well, it's an interesting question, right? Because I still think in this part of the world, the perception of a broadcaster is still significantly stronger than YouTube. So because we're in the industry, we understand that YouTube has that wider reach and you're able to get so much more out of it. But when we still produce traditional TV shows. So when I approach a guest and I invite them to come into our TV studio, they instantly say yes. When I invite them to come on a YouTube show, there's that hesitation, there's the resistance, there's show me the link, show me the subscribers, show me the numbers, show me the reach. They want all of this data, which they don't necessarily need or ask for in a TV medium. Because in their world, it's still, it's on broadcast, it's on television. I can put that logo, I can say, as seen on X. So I still think we're in an era, or at least in the Middle East, we're in a world where perception is reality. And it's become more and more important to be able to showcase that brand and say, I was on this show, than it is to actually reach the number of viewers that you can through YouTube.
Interesting.
I think the second thing I just want to add to that is also the experience is different. So I've seen it. I've seen when a guest arrives at our TV studio and they're just like blown away. They're blown away by the set, by the lights, by the cameras, and you feel that giddiness, that sense of excitement when they walk in, compared to obviously when you have a smaller setup for a YouTube show or a podcast. It's a very, very different experience. So I think people still value that experience, and I think that's what's keeping that perception alive right now.
Yeah, and there's still that element of nostalgia, right, of being on TV. I mean, most people have experienced this era of TV and when TV was dominant, right? Who from the generation maybe is not part of that group of people? I would say most of them, right? Even Gen Zs who are born in, let's say, the late 1990s and 2000s, they were still, right, part of that group of people that grew up with the broadcast TV being, right, I guess, center in terms of accessing premium content, exciting content, right? As opposed to others.
I think you're totally right about it being generational, because I'm in my 40s and I can see interestingly, we run these boot camps to, originally it started because so many people used to message me and say, how do I get on TV? and they wanted to present shows. And I thought, well, hang on, there's this universe of people who want to be on TV. There aren't as many opportunities. Have you ever been on it? Let's get you trained. So I started these boot camps, which was kind of a presenter training. And most of the attendees were in their 40s, like late 30s and 40s. And the majority of them had a dream at some point in time to turn on the TV set and for them to be on it, right?
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating because we keep attracting this age bracket, which are late 30s to late 40s, who grew up with that perception of like, that was the goal. And why I find this really interesting is because obviously I've been in the industry a long time, and I told them at my last workshop, it's like if you've gone to Cannes at any time in the last year and a half, which is where all the TV conferences happen, you go to a TV conference and they predominantly talk about YouTube. So I'm like, I'm attending a TV convention and they're telling you, you need to put your effort into YouTube. And so I've been sharing that same message with our participants. A few of them get it. A few of them are like, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube channel and I'm going to get going. And a few of them are still stuck to that dream. A few of them still feel like the end goal is being able to be in a big studio and be on a traditional channel. So I do believe that, you're right about people who are born in the 90s or a bit later. Perhaps that dream isn't so solid and they're seeing that quality production now on digital, on YouTube, and that's where the aspiration is. But my age and up, for sure, it is still a traditional broadcaster.
Yeah, I want us to take a pause, and we'll circle back to this, I guess, difference and I guess stigma between TV and digital, and where is the change happening. But I want to take a small pause and introduce you, Reim El Houni. You have lots of experience in this space. I want to leave it to you to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited to be here. Yes, my name is Reim El Houni. I'm the CEO and founder of a group of video production companies. My flagship brand is TI22 Films. We work with broadcasters, government agencies, produce TV content. But I also have brands like Dubai On Demand and Mission Visible, which are more B2C, and we support individuals grow their visibility on digital platforms and get comfortable on cameras like this.
Fantastic. Looks like I could be needing your services.
You're doing just fine.
Am I doing fine?
About it. I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah.
So good to know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask you for a few tips. Let's start with the this. I don't know if I want to call it. Is it a competition, or is it this change that's happening, or this shift that's happening from linear to digital? What's your take on this? Is it a battle of the two, or are they both just growing into their own beasts? Right. I'm talking here about linear TV and non-linear TV. Is it true that broadcast TV is decreasing?
It's dying. That's what everyone keeps telling me.
I don't even want to dare say the word, but you said it for me.
Yeah.
What's changing there?
I find this a really interesting question because I still produce TV shows. I still watch linear TV. I turn on my TV set and I literally scroll through. So I am still in the generation that believes that still exists. However, you can't ignore the data. But I do think that people are still gathering around the TV set. I think I recently read a statistic about how 52% of YouTube is being watched on a TV set. So, the habits around the TV set are still there. I just think we're watching content that's being produced on different platforms through the same medium.
Right.
So the question is, is traditional TV reducing, dying, whatever that may be? It depends what you consider to be traditional TV. Is traditional TV the way we are producing content? Or is it, because if you're talking about linear, there are still many occasions where linear still matters.
Yeah.
So especially if you look at live events, if you look at sports in particular, if you look at the World Cup, everyone is very fixated on the matches and are congregating at a certain time on one screen. And I still think that there are those events that pull everyone together in that way.
Yeah.
And I don't see that changing. What is changing is we're now seeing more streamers get into that space and create partnerships with different sports organizations to allow for that live content. But interestingly, also linear. You also need to fix a time in your calendar and show up at the same point. So I think what we're about to see is a growth in the live TV space, because that seems to be, from my perception, the only real space where linear still works and appointment viewing still works.
Right, we're seeing today live events being broadcasted on demand platforms, right? Where I don't know if you've heard or if you've seen very recently, actually, this tennis tournament, the Six Kings, right, in happening in Riyadh right now, is being streamlined on Netflix.
Yeah.
And you can now watch or follow football games of different leagues around Europe on an app, right? Which is Todd, which I found to be a little bit disruptive for me. Maybe because I'm a millennial and I still prefer to just turn on the TV and switch to the right channel and find my game, as opposed to trying to open the app and try to I guess mirror the content on the TV, and I didn't find it as seamless as just switching on the TV and flipping to the right channel. Maybe because I'm a millennial. But to your point, I guess linear TV, or more specifically live event, aren't disappearing. They're just shifting to a different way of or different space, right? But still within that big box in the middle of the room.
Correct. I mean, and it's interesting. So not many people know this, but I grew up as a huge wrestling fan, like a massive wrestling fan. And obviously Netflix have that partnership with WWE at the moment. And so, the number of times I've just been like, flicking through Netflix, and then I suddenly see this wrestling live thing pop up, and the notifications pop up. I found myself, although I haven't watched it in years, I found myself like clicking through, like, oh, wow, it's SummerSlam. Okay, let's see who these people are. So it's interesting that I feel like it's tapping into the habits that we have. But ultimately, do I want to watch it on my laptop or on my phone? Probably not. When it's an event of that caliber, you're going to watch it on your TV set. So I think it is allowing for more discovery and allowing a new audience to tap into the content. I think I just read about the NFL and YouTube. I find that really interesting because it's one thing to be partnered with a broadcaster. It's another to now acknowledge that streaming platforms are kind of rising up and to partner there. I believe even Stars Play has a couple of sports partnerships. But YouTube partnering with the NFL, I think that I'm curious to see how that's going to change the live event viewing space.
I think I've seen also multiple boxing or social boxing events happening on YouTube. Cricket on Stars Play, cricket tournaments. And back to your point that you made on content, whether the type of content has changed. I don't think it has, right? So whether it's broadcasted on linear TV, and let's say it's a series and you broadcast an episode of the series on a weekly basis, it's the same type, right, of content that can be shot and then delivered in batches to Netflix, right? Especially if I recall some of these reality TV shows, I feel like they're the same. If you compare some of the trending ones, right, on Netflix now, like Perfect Match, for example, Love is Blind. I don't see the difference between that and a Big Brother, for example.
Yeah,
right?
I totally agree. I think what we're seeing more of is that streamers are replicating the formulas and the production quality that you would see on a traditional broadcaster, which is why, it's becoming kind of, as you said, there is no difference. It's just about a different platform to view it on, and it's become more important that these platforms have a strong library so that they can attract your viewership. But yeah, from a content production, I'm not saying, I agree. Big Brother, Love is Blind, they're all, which is a great thing. It means that there's now a larger ecosystem for us to pitch content to and get content produced. But I want to segue and tell you about a very interesting case study I've had in the last year. We, as I mentioned, we run these boot camps, and we had this one lady called Arva. She runs a very successful food tour company called Frying Pan Adventures. And she joined one of our boot camps. I want you to consider, this is the equivalent of anyone sitting at home wanting to be on TV and thinking, oh, I'm going to give it a go. She came to the boot camp, got inspired, we launched a YouTube channel about a year ago. The YouTube channel is called Ditch the Silver. It's pretty much her exploring neighborhoods in Dubai and the hidden food gems. It started to pick up traction. We managed to get some sponsors on board. We managed to get on Emirates. And then I went and I took that to OSN. And I'm like, look, this is getting some traction. And OSN agreed to give us 10 episodes on OSN and OSN Plus, which is now in Q4. We're about to deliver that and it's going to go live. To me, that is incredibly exciting. You know, it's incredibly exciting that we can work with an individual who literally a year and a half ago was sitting at home with this dream. And you can now take the control and you can show people that there is an audience and there's traction. Go pitch it to a streamer. Well, with OSN, you've got both. You've got traditional and streaming. And it feels like we're finally in an era where we can do something about getting our content out there. If we just had the 4, 5, 6 traditional channels that I grew up with, that's a much harder kind of breakthrough point. Whereas now, because we have all of these options, it feels like, you know what, we can get this made and we can get it on a platform, we can get it out there and to a wider audience. And that's really where I see things going in the future.
Right. And she migrated completely to OSN, or 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Did she, was that like a sort of an exclusivity deal, or did she just mirror her episodes on OSN?
No, so what we decided to do is her YouTube channel is consistently growing. So we have separate content there, and it's an exclusive 10 episode set that is just for OSN and OSN Plus.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. And so this means that, does this affect any of the consumption rates, I guess, when it comes to TV versus other channels, like social media, like radio, like, I guess digital audio. What would you think is happening to that consumption of the TV? Has it grown, or is it just the type of content, the way we interact with TV has changed?
You're talking to someone who produces a daily TV show, and even I know people are watching our content on social media and not tuning in at 8:30 p.m. So, you know, it's one of those where they have to work hand in hand. You know, we're in a world now where people are consuming content where it's convenient for them, when it's convenient for them. So you have to create and provide those assets accordingly. So when we produce our show, yes, it airs linear, traditional, but we are uploading it on YouTube. We're creating all of the, the sound bites that we're uploading on other social platforms. We are tagging everyone on LinkedIn because a lot of our guests are on LinkedIn. And that's where I'm seeing the buzz get created for the content. And so often, we approach a guest and we say, oh, have you watched the show? And they say, yeah, I've seen clips on YouTube. I've seen clips on LinkedIn. I don't really hear people say, I watched it on TV. So it's one of those where when you're asking about consumption, the consumption is still there. I think it's just now proliferated over, a diverse range of platforms versus it being, traditionally where we would get it. But I think that poses a different challenge, which is how do you measure it? So we're constantly in this world of like, well, even if your ratings may not appear as strong as they would have, let's say, 10 years ago, people are still consuming it in other ways. So you need to now consider the full picture when you're looking at the consumption.
Right. And I think also, and let me know if you share this opinion, I think the way TV as a medium differentiates itself from other channels is the excitement of the content. Right? Like, as you said, if there's a really good show that you want to follow, or a really important event that you want to tune into, you don't just tune into that event from your phone. You're gonna try to put it on the big screen, right? Because it's exciting. And I think that's the message, right, to advertisers out there, that while TV or while the social media, I guess, channels are growing, TV is still sort of owns a certain, I guess, space whereby it can deliver excitement, right, to the end customer. How do you deal though with measurement? Because I feel like this may be one of the challenges of TV. Perhaps now with connected TV, with the streaming platforms, it's easier to measure. But is it still a challenge?
I totally agree that it is a challenge. I have never been in, fully versed on the measurement side of things because I've always been on the content creation side, but working with, with agencies that are looking into that. I know that our across the board TV ratings are dropping, which is why, as I said, I think it's important to look at, where else should we be measuring? Should we be measuring, the reach on YouTube? Should we be measuring, the reach on other social platforms and feeding that into our decisions when it comes to the TV content? And I think sometimes I see that happen, and sometimes I feel that we still think in a traditional way, and are fixated on the viewing figures on a TV set. Whereas, as I said, I know the shows that I produce on TV, the viewership is coming from online. But it wouldn't have existed had it not been on TV. So it's kind of an ecosystem that is codependent at this point.
Right, and I think if your ad appears on TV, it will make a bigger impact on brand metrics such as brand association, such as brand positioning, perhaps not in the area of reach and viewership, but I believe it would do better on brand association
I still
and
think,
equity.
I still think like the credibility side of things is where TV still, holds the fort, because the number of people who want to be able, as an individual, who want to be able to say, as seen on X or as seen on Y, is very high. And I think for brands to be affiliated with TV stations have a longer history. So I think that's the other thing we need to consider. All of these platforms have popped up in the last, decade or so. Even social media platforms. YouTube is only 20 years old, so which in itself is amazing, but it's looking at the history of, let's say, all traditional broadcasters. I find examples in the UK very interesting, because you've got, channels like the BBC and ITV and Channel 4 that have been around for decades, who are now leveraging their content and putting them on YouTube. So I think it's not an either or. It's how do you leverage the brand perception and name of a broadcaster, which does give, brands a different credibility. And then how do you also leverage the reach of social platforms so it's a win-win?
Right. You mentioned earlier that you also work with individuals on YouTube, on setting up their YouTube channels, growing their YouTube channels, and hopefully also locking deals with big organizations or on-demand content organizations such as OSN. Let's talk a little bit about this.
Yep.
Do you also work with the businesses on setting up their YouTube channels?
So it's interesting question, because I still feel that businesses are a bit slow to take up the opportunity. And there are many businesses globally that are, but I haven't seen many regionally that have seen the potential and have stepped in and be like, yeah, we're ready to do this. So often, and I also think regionally, there's this whole feeling of, I need to see it first. I need to see it work. I need to see it first, and then I'm ready to jump in. So at the moment, I would say, especially in the content space, the majority of people we're working with are B2C. They're the content creators or the thought leaders who are experts in a specific niche, who understand that the only way they're going to get that visibility is to create their own space and grow. And then with a view to attracting brands and businesses to jump on board. We do work with a lot of businesses, but not yet in this space, because I feel like the gap is still quite big for them to see the potential.
Why is it easier to work with creators and individual rather than businesses? Is it because they're easier to, they're quicker to take decisions, to change, to adopt techniques?
I think that's an accurate observation, because I think that with the individuals that we do work with, they're often thought leaders or experts in their field, and they understand that they need to carve their own space. In the same way you're doing that, running this podcast, right?
Yeah.
It's that you've been in this industry for over a decade. You know there are stories to tell. It's easier for you to set up a podcast and build that growth and build those relationships than it is to kind of go and knock on a broadcaster's door, right? So, and you can see the long-term game behind doing that. So compared to a brand who has traditionally been spending money on TV commercials, on ads, on different mediums to attract their customers, this is a long game, and they've seen results doing it differently. So I do think there's resistance towards moving in this direction, which for a individual like yourself, it's like, you know what, this is a quick win. I can get started and I can be consistent and see results. So I think it's mental, actually. It's a mindset shift that's needed.
Right. But wouldn't you say that brands have the funds and the money to promote their channels, to employ some of YouTube's paid ads in the YouTube space in order to grow their subscribers and their viewers? Or is that perhaps not a good strategy?
I actually do think it's an excellent strategy. I just don't think they've jumped on the bandwagon yet. And when you look at, I mean, I think in the UK, there are many brands that already do this. So I think like JD Sports is one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
You know, they started a series. I can't remember. There's a kitchen appliance brand that has sponsored a show with the chef.
Food chef.
Gordon Ramsay. Gordon
Ramsay, yeah.
There's a kitchen utensil brand. I don't remember the name, but
Yeah.
they've sponsored a show with Gordon Ramsay. I think it's called something like My Idiot Sandwich.
Right.
And it's filmed at the same production quality and production level that you would expect a broadcaster to produce content in. But it's fully branded by this kitchen appliance brand. And all that Gordon does is during these, this competition show, the appliances appear every so often. So obviously huge mileage for the brand, and they get it. I'm just not seeing examples of that in this region yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of time, because what having been here now for close to 19 years, what I've seen is it just takes others to do it first. They need to see that it works, and then they're ready to jump in. What I am starting to see more and more of in the last year or so is business podcasts. So I'm seeing more companies step into the podcast space. And the recent shift that I'm seeing, I don't know if you've spotted it, but when they all started to jump in, they were hiring external presenters to present their own podcasts. Whereas now, I would say in the last 6 months, I'm seeing entities kind of groom their own teams and their own staff 100%. And have them step up as the hosts, So the last couple that I've seen, like I think Expo City has just launched a podcast, and their VP of marketing is the host. Gulf Marketing Group has set up their podcast, and the host happens to be, I think she's now the head of people. So that to me is a very, very fascinating shift, because they're clearly starting to see the value in creating their own content, but not quite jumping to YouTube and full-on shows. But I feel like this podcast wave is almost like them testing the waters to see how they can grow.
Right. One good example that I can recall for brands employing YouTube to put out good content and build an audience there is Saudi Telecom. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the content that they post on YouTube, but I would say they're probably one of the first brands that I believe have done it right. What they've done, and they started doing that probably around 2015, 2014, if they've partnered with content creators in Saudi Arabia that have cracked the code of YouTube, such as Telfaz 11, U-Turn, and so they started producing content on their channel, YouTube online video content, right? 2-minute videos, 6-minute videos, 7-minute videos of really, really cool stories. And that basically built up their channel. And I believe they've reached around 500,000 subscribers in just a few years, which I believe made them perhaps the most followed telco maybe on YouTube.
I haven't seen the content, but I mean, I definitely think that that's a great strategy, which is obviously leveraging creators who understand the space very well. And I do think brands see that as a quick win. So that's why, in the influencer space or the content creator space, that's where that whole industry and brand deals exists, because it's almost easier for a brand to partner with someone who's succeeding on YouTube than them create their own show. So that we're seeing more and more of right now.
Right. Podcasting on YouTube has been a thing that's been happening for years now. Would you say it's here to stay, or is it in the past?
No, I think it's about to grow. I think if anything, we're seeing, especially when the last year or so, you're seeing more podcasts become vodcasts, and obviously YouTube have clearly changed a lot of their tools to support that. But I think I just read in the last week about Spotify and Netflix, having a new partnership. So we're about to see a whole wave of podcasts appear on Netflix, which is huge reach for all of these creators. I think, this year's Golden Globes is the first Golden Globes with a podcast category. So if anything, we're about to see it become even more mainstream, and we're about to see even more people step into this space because it's a bit more accessible. It's a bit more accessible than, I'm going to create a series or a full show. I'm going to, have a simple setup and focus on content and a conversation, which I think for many people out there is like, I can do that. That is just an easier stepping into the content space. So I think this is only the beginning.
Right. And what other kinds of content or types of content would you say is working now on YouTube?
Working now on YouTube, I mean, I think it's really interesting to see how there's almost an audience for everything, so it's kind of how niche can you get. So
Yeah.
I do believe that. I've always believed that the more niche you can get and the more you can, serve a particular audience, you're going to see kind of that uptick in your content.
Yeah. Or perhaps maybe the different types of formats. So, for example, if one of your clients comes to you and is a cook, let's say, what would you recommend first? Would it be, for example, maybe a podcast or a vlog, or maybe is it like a comic type series, skits, or maybe it's all of them?
I think that's a great question. I often tell people to stay away from comedy because I think comedy is incredibly subjective. Like what you find funny, what I find funny, two very different things. So I always worry about entering that world. I do think that, the primary type of content that everyone's consuming is education or something they can learn from. So I always use that lens in terms of if you're starting, how are we adding value or educating someone? Because that's ultimately what people are going to search for. In terms of what medium, do they vlog or do they do a podcast or do they do a video? I think above all, consistency is the most important thing you can do in this space. So I always advocate for doing the thing that is going to be the easiest for you to do consistently. If you come up with the most amazing creative idea, but you know what, you can only pull it off once every 6 weeks, that's amazing, that's great. Maybe it's a special, maybe it's a bonus. But that cannot be the type of format that you rely on to grow an audience and grow a reach. Somehow, people are succeeding in the podcast space and being consistent because there are formulas in how to make sure you're efficient in that process. So it may seem like a simpler medium than doing a full-blown creative concept, but the consistency in this case is more important. So in my opinion, do what you can do consistently that's achievable for you. And that, I think, is the winning formula.
Right. It's still a very competitive space, right? The YouTube world and the world of growing a YouTube channel and to start monetizing on YouTube. You have to reach a certain number of watch time hours, and so what are your one or two tips you would say that a YouTube channel owner should prioritize in order to start seeing growth? So you mentioned consistency, which is I guess posting on a regular basis, perhaps once a week at least. What else is there? Can you share like a few practical tips? Is it perhaps SEO or the way you present your content, or is it the content itself needs to be exciting and very unique?
So I'm very much a content person. So from that perspective, and if the question is about growth or at least about monetization, I personally have had more success monetizing through integration and through sponsors than I have through, let's say, YouTube,
Programmatic
YouTube, yeah,
ads,
returns, right?
yeah.
And also because I personally don't believe in it, which is a bit of a challenge. Like I personally don't believe in turning the ads on,
Right.
because I just feel like, you know what, I don't want to be sending my audience off to another ad, like as soon as they've started watching my video. I feel that it's counterintuitive when you're trying to grow an audience. So I'm probably not the right person to speak to about how to really leverage the YouTube game when it comes to monetization.
Yeah.
What has worked for me is the content game, which is creating content that aligns so well with a brand out there that they can't help but want to be part of that content. I mean, just to give you an example, the same series actually that we've been working on with Arva, Ditch the Silver, is very much about showcasing hidden food gems in Dubai, and it's very authentic to the city. And we were approached by Dubai Tourism because they saw the content, and then it was aligned with specifically Dubai Eats and the gastronomy sector. And that's turning into an amazing partnership where they've come on board as a sponsor for that series. So to me, that is the win that I'm looking for, is how do I ensure that the content I'm creating aligns with an entity or an organization, and that's how I get it monetized, because that's something that I can build on. Not to say you can't the other way, but it feels more strategic,
Yeah.
when you're playing with the YouTube algorithm versus when you are looking at how to impact the content and deliver an audience in a different way.
Right. And another point I was trying to make is also maybe how do you grow your channel, right? And ultimately lead to monetization. Or would you say that the numbers don't really matter for a brand? It's more about the type of content, right, that is put out there, if it aligns with the brand?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think, there are a lot of brands who care about the numbers, and that's their primary focus. I've been leaning in on the brands that don't. I've been leaning in on the brands that feel like, you know what, the quality of the content, the quality of what you're producing aligns with us. Also because there's value in that content and they're able to leverage it for their own brand needs as well. So again, I the reason I'm not commenting is because none of my YouTube channels have grown massively. So I don't feel like I'm the right person to comment on that. But that's not to say they haven't succeeded and they haven't been monetized and they haven't made it onto other platforms. It's just I've taken a different route.
Right. So I have two more questions
Sure.
to ask you. One of the questions I'm sure you probably expect me to ask, which is more around AI, right? And with the emergence of these new advanced AI tools like VO3 from Google, who is really good or getting better, right, at producing video content. How do you see that impact the video content space and creation? Do you see creators use VO3 in their content creation in a hybrid way or fully? Some people are creating, series out of it. What's the impact going to look like? Is it going to undermine creators, the way they work, or is it going to help them?
I think it's both fascinating and scary at the same time, because I'm seeing the output of some of these tools and they're really good. And it just makes you wonder, like, how long, will we continue to produce content the way we currently are? And things are shifting like on a weekly, monthly basis at this point. Yeah. To answer your question, I think, I do see it as an asset for a lot of creators who want to be more creative or tell a story differently. I find it very interesting in the, I do work with a lot of businesses, and I do think we're in a market that needs to visualize things. So, being able to use these tools to help visualize an idea that originally you would have had like a written treatment, or you would have had like a storyboard, and now being able to show them, whether it's through Midjourney, Runway, VO, like any of these ideas come to life, I think actually does help in the pitching process or getting ideas over the line. Having said that, in the TV space, I do think that's why we're going to see even more emphasis on the live event space and even more emphasis on, even the examples you shared earlier, Big Brother, Love is Blind, in the reality space, because I think, that's the focus on people and humans is going to become even more important as we see this proliferation of like AI content come out there. So I think there's going to be even more of reality. Let's hope it's better reality than what's currently coming out. But yeah, there's no reason not to use it to enhance your content if you're a content creator right now.
Right. Last one. What is it that excites you the most that you see may come in the next 5 years?
So one thing that excites me the most is this feeling of everything being possible for anyone. And I've always believed that. I grew up in this industry. I've been in this industry for 25 years, and I grew up in a world where, a celebrity was a celebrity, and they're like in front of the camera, and you're behind the camera, and like, oh, they're this big deal. And now we're in a world where absolutely everybody has the power and the control to create content and get out there. And if you make a bit of a mark with it, you can take it even further. The example I shared, being able to get it on a streaming platform, on a traditional broadcaster. And that excites me. The idea that, you can do this, I can do that, we can all do this, especially knowing what used to be there and the layers that were there before. I think anything is possible.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Reim El Houni. It was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Where can my audience and my listeners find you?
Everywhere. I'm very active. I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. So Reim El Houni on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rima.
Thank you.